Greetings and salutations, this is Jarsz, the biggest YouTuber ever! And good morning, Jarsouls, for the 25th of October 2023. Welcome to another edition of the Daily Jarsz, or the stupid that's fit to laugh at. Today we're having a look at the channel of that serial pest and bovine lover, Gary Whybother. In fact, this is Gary's last chance on this channel. I appreciate that Gary didn't downvote yesterday's stream, but the only thing that'll save you today is if we find any objective evidence for Flat Earth on your channel. Or if you can present that in the comments, that'd be great too. Moderators, no one block Gary or one of his many socks today. Let's give him every chance. But if we don't see any Flat Earth evidence by the end of the stream, I'll take care of it. And Gary will become just the second person ever to be blocked on my channel. If you're interested, the other was blocked for accusing people of heinous crimes without evidence and without going to the police. So Gary, put up, unless you want to join that company. Otherwise, I'll shut you up on my channel. That's a slightly negative note to start with, but let's go to a more positive one, and I want to thank all my members. Yes, a special thank you to Second Best Bob, who rejoined yesterday, and also to my new members who joined yesterday, thanks to the generosity of Monkey in the Works. If you're one of those lucky recipients, please give Monkey in the Works a thank you when you see him in the chat. And a special thank you to the other members who have been with me for so long. Thank you all for being part of the huge Jarsz movement. Right, let's get into looking at Gary Whybother. This is the slow bit where I need to share the screen, and it takes forever to select everything. I can't do it beforehand, unfortunately. There we go. I think that's sharing. Yes, good. Right. So this is Gary's video on the famous image of Blackpool Tower, which is the image that brought Ranty back to sanity. Let's have a look or listen to what Gary has to say about this. Yes, I'm on good 1.5 speed. Let's let him go.
Okay, this is a commentary on a video regarding Ranty and this picture of Blackpool Tower and some small mountains further away. This is a zoomed in picture, just so we remember that. Blackpool Tower, I believe, is about 12 or 13 miles from wherever the observer was, and those mountains are about 38 miles from the observer. Now, Baldy and Ruhif and Ranty can't seem to understand why the mountains look lower than the tower. Now, this is simple perspective. The tower is closer. The mountains are further. Closer, larger, further, smaller. It's natural perspective. There's nothing mystical or magical about this.
That's very true, Gary. There is an effect of perspective here because the mountains are further away. But if I look out at 10 meters high, everything above 10 meters will remain 10 meters high if we assume a flat Earth. That's not the case here. That's the problem. I'll let Ruhif get into that later on.
The mountains didn't drop because of curvature. It's just simple perspective. There's Blackpool Tower, not zoomed in. I believe this picture came from Try Thinking. This is how we normally would see it. It's small because it's 13 miles away, and those mountains are way smaller. They're 38 miles away. Remember, globies, closer, bigger, further, smaller. This is simple.
That's generally something flirts have trouble with, Gary. It's really weird you saying it, but it's good to hear one flirt figures it out at least. But like I said, there is an effective perspective here, sure. But that's not the reason why the mountains are below the tower. We'll get into that later.
It's not hard to remember. It's easy to understand. It's simple perspective. Now here's a picture. Those mountains are maybe 60, 70 miles away behind that tree, the big tree in the middle there. Now the tree is maybe a couple miles from where I am. It's early morning. Sun hasn't risen yet. It's getting closer though. Now the Sierra Nevada mountains, I mean, that's a big mountain range. So I would say those mountains back there, at least 8,000 feet, probably higher.
It's wonderful how Flirts are so precise with their measurements, aren't they? How can they possibly think that they're coming up with anything useful when coming up, that's the way they measure things. Oh, it's about 7,000 feet or whatever. On with the stupid.
But they're far. So natural perspective has them looking smaller than the tree that's close by. Now, if you just pay attention to those other trees that are to the left, they're further. They're probably a couple miles further away. Further, smaller. Closer, bigger. Simple perspective. Everybody should know that. So anyhow, this is a similar thing to Ranty's Blackpool Tower that he doesn't seem to understand, and neither do the rest of his globy friends. There's nothing difficult about this. When I look at those...
You've taken one concept, Gary, and you've over-applied it. There's more going on than just perspective.
Mountains in the background here, I know they're much higher than that tree, even by perspective.
Which is why you should be questioning why they're not above the tree.
It's obvious. It's obvious the tree is much closer by.
Duh.
So anyhow, it's simple perspective. Globies need to remember, close equals bigger, far equals smaller.
Flirts seem to have no idea that more than one thing could be happening at once. That's why they don't understand why how gravity can affect a helium balloon. There's more than one force on it at the same time. It can overcome the force of gravity. The buoyant force, which is dependent on gravity, is greater than the pull of gravity. Gravity is not a very strong force, especially when the mass is very low, like it would be in a helium balloon. And he's doing the same thing here. He's thinking, well, perspective is the only thing that could possibly be going on, so I'm not going to consider anything else. It excludes you from the truth, Gary. Think more.
Let's say I took that tree in the middle there and I slid it further towards those mountains, on rails or something. It would become increasingly smaller and be below the tops of those mountains. But here's another idea. Wonder if I just simply elevated and went straight up. Now the tree would be below the mountains. The mountains would be much higher than the tree, because that's what simple perspective does.
We agree, Gary. But that's not the reason that mountains are below the tree.
Just like Blackpool Tower would. If I could take this Blackpool Tower in this picture and slide it closer to the mountains, it would decrease in angular size, apparent angular size, not actual. I know you globies are really particular. You would say, oh, you think it actually gets smaller. No, it just appears to compress with distance. Increasing distance.
No, we don't think it actually gets smaller, and I've just accidentally clicked the wrong thing. I've had enough of this one anyway. I don't think there's much more we can get out of this. I'm going to play Ruhif's debunk of all this. And I know Ruhif doesn't mind me playing his videos, so let's have a listen to Ruhif. It will be a little bit more intelligent.
The vibe of the thing. Sleeping Warrior has mirrored a video from Exploring the Plain. Exploring the Plain is at Thurstaston Hill, which is 298 feet up. He's lined up a shot to a mountain in the distance called Red Screes, 2,446 feet and 77.6 miles away. And this line of sight goes directly through Blackpool Tower, 32.3 miles away. So we should be able to make some predictions about where that line of sight should intersect Blackpool Tower if we were on a globe. But first of all, the UK switched to metric in 1965. So here are the correct measurements. 298 feet is actually 91 meters. The Blackpool Tower observation deck at 420 feet is 128 meters. I think he's actually mismeasured the distance to Blackpool Tower. I got 32.14, which is 51.7 kilometers. The mountain Red Screes, 2,446 feet or 746 meters. And I have it as 125 kilometers away.
Now, I just want to make the point. Can you see the difference between Gary's approach to data and Ruhif's? Ruhif tries to be careful about it and make sure he knows what's out there in reality. If you don't start with reality, you're not going to get anywhere.
And in Exploring the Plains video, he says, according to the maths, the mountain should align with the tower about halfway up. All right, so here is his actual observation. And as you can see, the top of the mountain aligns roughly with the viewing platform. But according to his math, the top of the mountain should align roughly halfway up Blackpool Tower. Blackpool Tower actually starts way down here. So this level here is about 37 meters. So halfway up is about here. So this is his prediction. And he got that prediction from an earth curve calculator that draws straight lines of sight between 2 points. And it gave him a result of 216.4 feet or 66 meters, which is again roughly halfway up the tower. Rather than boring you all with the math equations, you can go and watch me derive them, derive the viewing angles on a globe in this video from last year. But basically from an elevation of 91 meters at Thurstaston Hill, looking across to Red Screes, which has a height of 746 meters and a distance of 125 kilometers, you will need to look down from eye level at 0.262 degrees. All right, but those formulas can be rearranged so that instead of giving it an elevation and a distance to produce an angle, you can give it the angle and the distance, and that will give you the elevation as the result. So again, not going to bore you with all the formulas, but if you give it the angle we just calculated for Red Screes, which was 0.262 degrees below eye level, and then give it the distance to Blackpool Tower, you'll get an elevation of 64.5 meters. That matches obviously pretty closely to the result that ETP got, which was 66 meters, except for, can anyone guess? Refraction. He didn't incorporate refraction. All right, and I've done plenty of videos on refraction. Like, we have an atmosphere, refraction is a thing. So if you incorporate standard refraction of 7/6R, then the angles that we calculated before are slightly different. For Red Screes in the background, instead of looking down by 0.262 degrees, refraction will cause it to loom up slightly so that it's only 0.182 degrees below eye level. If we then go back and work out where this new line of sight intersects Blackpool Tower, instead of intersecting at 64.5 meters, it now intersects at 107 meters. Right. So that, again, the base of Blackpool Tower is roughly 37 meters above sea level. And the viewing platform is about 128 meters. So the visible part of this structure is about 90 meters. So the proper prediction that ETP should have made is about here. Still not perfect, but pretty close. If you want to match it, if you want to match the globe perfectly or make the observation match the globe perfectly, refraction would need to be around 7.6R or 7.6 over 6R rather than 7 over 6R. And again, if you want to see the range of what's considered normal refraction, then check out the videos on the previous slide.
So I might stop it there because we enjoy listening to Ruhif. It's certainly a contrast to what Gary does. Ruhif goes through, identifies all the variables that might be relevant, and provides the data for them, shows his work. The formulas are easily available. They're empirical. You don't have to make them up. They're available everywhere. Completely different to the way Gary approaches it. And Judy, I noticed you mentioned rubber bands. I'm sorry. The next one is about rubber bands. Just have a look at this.
Okay, we're using a rubber band video again because simpletons like Blue Marble Science and many others were confused because I only use
the irony of a cow farmer calling an electrical engineer a simpleton, like Blue Marble Science.
a section at the top compared to a section at the bottom, when in fact the whole top.
Oh, just just I hope you understand the context of what I'm saying there. I'm not saying anything bad about cow farmers. They've got a lot of knowledge and a lot of intelligence in what they do, but they don't know anything about physics. It's not their job. Whereas an electrical engineer needs to know about physics.
The whole building is the whole thing compared to just this section. So anyhow, we start off. This is a 45 and a 45-degree angle. Of course, this is a 90-degree angle. Now, it's not perfect. I have nails in here. It doesn't come out perfect, but that's what it's about. Now, the angle to the top for the whole building, the angle to the top of the building, this from here to here is 80 degrees, while this is only 10 degrees. It's foreshortened up here because of the close proximity to the building. Well, this one's...
I don't think Gary understands what foreshortened means. And that's probably the source of most of his issues. Here's the dictionary definition. To shorten by proportionally contracting in the direction of depth so that an illusion of projection or extension in space is obtained. So to make more compact, abridge, shorten. Now, what he's saying is that this angle up here, let me make it full screen, is being foreshortened. No, it's just the angle from that point. It's got nothing. It's not being compressed or anything like that. That's just the actual angle if you measure from here to here. And there's a, this is meant to be the side of a building, an analogous for that. So nothing's being foreshortened, Gary.
Starts off in close proximity, even though it's got a lesser angle, it's got a greater angle here. This one has a bigger angle than here, but it has much less here. It's foreshortened. This one isn't.
No, it isn't.
So it's going to have a parallax effect as we move away to this end.
And now he's talking about parallax, and I don't think he understands what that means either. Let's check the dictionary for that. The apparent displacement or difference in apparent direction of an object is seen from two different points, not on a straight line with the object. Motion parallax governs the way objects appear to move when the eyes or head are shifted. So basically, you're looking at the same thing from a different angle. And that's not what's happening in what you're demonstrating. You don't understand those two words, and they're the crux of what you're trying to argue.
Okay, now we move further away. This to this end, this is now a 10-degree angle. It was a 45-degree angle here. This is now an 80-degree angle.
We don't disagree.
45. So now I hardly have any foreshortening effects here.
There's no foreshortening
effect. It's getting smaller and
effect.
smaller, down to 10 degrees right here.
You don't understand what that means.
Well, to the top of the building, this is a 45-degree angle, or a 40-degree angle, and this is a 50-degree angle. And of course, all the angles over here are 90. So we went from this one when it was close here, being 80 degrees, down to 40 degrees. Well, this one went from 45 degrees to 10 degrees. The bottom is always going to be a smaller angle. It's going to be the one that compresses quickest to the point where you can't resolve it as separate from the ground. There's no getting around this. I made it simple for the simpletons. Globies
There's no compression, Gary. This is just viewing.
can't think. Bottoms disappear because of angular compression, and they reach the Rayleigh criterion limit, which
Another thing you don't understand.
makes them unresolvable as separate from the ground with the distance before the top will. The angle's always going to be smaller in the first section than it is the entire thing. Okay.
So much stupid in one video. It's typical Flurf, isn't it? They don't understand something, but they think they do, and therefore Earth am flat. There's nothing in this video that proved Earth was flat. I think he's trying to explain how things get smaller or things move away. We don't disagree with that. That's perspective. That's what the law of perspective does. We can calculate for it. You seem to think it's something new. Anyway, here's another one of yours. Let's put it on. Is it on? No, it's not on faster speed, because otherwise it'd be unbearable. Let's see what he has to say. Narrow visual angles to surfaces cause foreshortening effects. I've got a feeling he's just going to misunderstand what foreshortening means again.
Okay, we're going to show the effects of what foreshortening does in your field of view. The lower your angle, or the more acute your angle to a surface, the less detail you see. How many sticks of chalk do I have up there? This is grease chalk. You can't tell from this, even though I have a slight angle over the top. They're all equal. They're all the same size. Now, you might get a clue if you look at the tips of the shadows down there. Zoom in on it, you could probably count them then. But anyhow, when I get like barely over the top, those chalks take a very small portion of my field of view. Now, as I come up and look down at them, they take up, straighten up the camera again, I got to go back further to get them all in. They take up a much longer length in my field of view, much more room in my field of view. And by the way, there's 15. And they're lined up straight. So as I lower the camera, my angle over the tops of them becomes more acute. And look at that line, it's just getting shorter and shorter in my field of view.
And they're getting blocked.
I really can't tell how many there are at all. It looks like hardly any.
That's because they're being blocked by the other ones in front of them. Oh, Gary, we agree with what you say about perspective. We actually quantify it. You don't seem to understand it in the way that you need to. You just seem to misapply it. It's not, this isn't anything to do with perspective in terms of not being able to see the chalk at the end. It's being blocked with the ones in front. If you look along the top of the chalk, you won't be able to see the end because it's at the same level. If you go up, you're going to see them all. Duh.
Now it works, of course, the same to the sides. My angle gets wider. Takes up more room in my field of view because I have a wider angle. As the angle to them becomes more acute, it takes up less in my field of view. I see less detail.
Because they're getting blocked.
There's a second one there. You really can't even see the ones past that. Of course, it works the same on any side, same result.
So if he's basically saying this is what happens on a flat Earth, he's basically proving the globe argument, that things are getting in the way, like the ship over the horizon thing. Folks just don't understand anything, do they?
Just foreshortened angles.
There is no foreshortened.
From acute angles to surfaces. That's essentially a surface. Somebody will probably say, oh, it's not a surface. No, it's a surface to each side of the chalk. Oh, by the way, the table does the same thing, right? Look at that table. By the way, this is an old picnic table.
Oh, is it? Duh.
After they died. We just stuck it in the backyard. It's kind of nice, even though it's very, very old. And watch what happens as I lower my camera. An angle to the surface becomes more acute than the surface of the table.
Yes, that's perspective, Gary. No one disputes that. At least you don't put it below the level of the table
Really,
and
just
being dishonest like Phuket Word.
You can just see a little bit.
Angles of the dangle, yes.
Still see the bottoms of the chalks. I'm going to get right at the edge. Oh, that would be like a horizon. Oh.
So I will give him that he's being honest enough not to put it below the table like Phuket Word. He's an honest idiot, you might say. We've got a minute left. Is there anything else he's going to say?
Get up a little bit, see just a little bit of the surface. But it looks like it's very short. You can't tell the distance to it or anything. But of course, as I widen the angle, I have less foreshortening of the table.
It's just perspective, Gary.
Globies don't pay attention to. By the way,
yes, we do. It's perspective. We can quantify it. We got formulas for it.
It's completely different. Your limitations will always be at center frame.
Oh, I don't think he's going to say anything else in the last few seconds. All right, I've got a feeling. So field of view, I think he pretty much covered that one. We might look at the EQ mount because how anyone can think the EQ mount can prove flat Earth is just ridiculous. So let's see what he has to say here. I'm sure I hope it isn't stupid. He lied.
Okay, here we go. I'm making this diagram. I formed a line down here on the ground. This one would be the sky. We'll just say the sun, even though it's way bigger than what the sun would be. Now each of these angles is 15, or what did I make it? 10 degrees. So here's straight up. Now if my lines aren't perfectly straight, who cares? But we'll say that's straight up, 10 degrees, 10 degrees. Sky.
He said, who cares? I mean, oh, hang on, I'm not speeding this up. He said, who cares? But people should care. I mean, see the difference between the attention to detail of this and what Ruhith did. Ruhith is pretty much given you all his work. You can go away and say, this is where you got it wrong. With this, it's just, oh, I'm not even going to draw the line straight. How can you be certain that you've got it right?
This one would be the sky. We'll just say the sun.
I think I...
Straight, who cares? But we'll say that straight up, 10 degrees, 10 degrees. Now I do the same thing over here. There's 10 degrees, there's 10 degrees. So what we're going to see is the observers down here. So each part of this sky contain different, or of the angles contains different amounts of actual sky. Here you got 10 and 10, they're straight up above you, 10 to the side, 10 to the side. And you got the width of a little over 2 of my suns right there. So now farther down over here, I can get about 4.5 in there. Still 20 degrees down here to me. Just like this is 20 degrees. But because in the...
But so what, Gary? You said this line here was the sky. But the sun doesn't move like that. It moves around the globe. Well, sorry, it appears to move around the celestial sphere. It doesn't move in a straight line away from the globe like that.
Flat Earth model, or at least my version of it, the sky and everything in it is moving parallel to the plane of the Earth down here, the ground. Now this, because there's way more distance in that 20 degrees of total space, it's going to take the sun, if it's moving across the sky, much longer to get through that space than it does this little space.
Which we don't see. Hang on. Is he going to... Oh, God, this is going to be stupid if I'm right.
Now, this is the reason why the EQ mount fails and begins to track inaccurately the sun or anything else as they go towards the horizon. The EQ mount is basically set on a timer, 15 degrees per hour, right? So it's just continuously going. It's not slowing down for anything. It's just going to go in this, like this arc right here.
Yeah, so in other words, not what you're representing here.
At 15 degrees per hour. So, because there's actually much further space to go through here, the sun is going to seem to be hanging up. Now, the globe earthers, the Wolfies and the Bob Science guys and the NASA shrills and guys like that, will say it's because of refraction. And I believe Wolfie said it could be up to...
What sort of a refraction? You're not making any sense, Gary.
1.5 degrees. And so they'll actually end up telling you that the sun actually has gone down, but we're seeing it refracted back up. So that's their magical potion to explain why the sun hangs up and the EQ mount keeps on arcing down as if the sun went down when it's still up. Well, it's because of these foreshortened angles. The sky, it's a lot more sky.
Sorry, I don't... What? The sun hangs up? The sun doesn't... Yes, at sunset, there's there is a refraction effect, but it doesn't last forever. The sun does set, and the EQ mount will follow that.
Contained in those 20 degrees and the amount of sky in these 20 degrees. That's a force.
Oh, I think he's confusing a motor drive with an EQ mount. EQ mount is how you set. You can point your telescope at a particular point in the celestial sphere relative to that sphere. But the motor drive keeps you tracking that point. I think he's confusing the two.
Shortening effect. When the angles become more acute down here, it gets worse and worse. And that's why when they track stars and stuff and planets and all the other things for astrophotography, they prefer to stay more in the middle part of the sky, the high points, because there's less change, and so they can get their picture.
There's also less refraction in the high point of the sky because there's less atmosphere to look through. Surely this is obvious to you.
They don't track from horizon to horizon. Now, I remember when all these guys, back when I first became a flat earther, they would say, guys like Wolfie, that an EQ mount proves the globe because it can track on a one-axis rotation from horizon to horizon. In fact, they said it can go all the way back around and still be on track. Well, we don't see that. And Wolfie and Bob actually did a video explaining.
We do see that. In fact, Wolfie's got a video where he's followed the sun completely from sunrise to sunset through an entire day. The sun remains in the middle of the field of view, disproving what you just said.
Explaining the problems with the EQ mount near the horizons. Of course, and they say that they have a fix for it, and it's called the King's rate. All the King's rate is an adjustment in the rotational speed. So instead of rotating at 15 degrees per hour, it slows down because that's the only way it can track the sun from one end to the other. It can't do it at 15 degrees per hour because the Earth is flat. It's not a globe. The EQ mount was designed for a globe. but it fails at the horizons, just as predicted by a flat Earth where the sky is moving parallel, like my model right here. Now I'm going to.
What do you mean by it fails at the horizons? There is a refraction effect, but it's not so significant. As that video I just mentioned about Wolfie doing the sun from sunrise to sunset, the EQ mount, the tracking motor anyway, followed it from sunrise to sunset. So, I don't know what you're talking about.
Show you one more thing here. Why we can get 69 miles per degree angle measurements. Well, that's because the same reason here. Just take this thing. Let's say we're on the flat Earth, the flat sky going across, and all I do is just take this point and move it. Now, all those angles now, the straight up would be here, the 10 and 10, and same thing over there. They're always going to be covering the same amount of sky. So basically, all you have to do is, it's a perspective angle. You just take it from we're going to pretend that this is all sea level, by the way, down here. This is all sea level. So as you move, these angles will all cover the same amount of total sky as they do right here. I just moved them further towards the left. They always cover the same amount. So all you do is...
You seem to be assuming that the sky is flat. This line represents the sky, but it doesn't. It curves around us. Or it appears to, at least. I think that's enough. I don't want to see it, Gary, anymore. So, did Gary provide evidence for flat Earth? Type a 1 if he did, and a 2 if he didn't. In the chat, of course. Let's see what you think. Unfortunately, I have to wait, so maybe I should fill in the dead space. But type a 1 in the chat if you think Gary proved flat Earth, and 2 if he didn't, if he just talked nonsense. We got a few 2s. I'm not seeing any 1s. Okay, Gary, looks like it's bye-bye, Gary. Is there anyone who wants to speak up for Gary and say that I shouldn't ban him? Deadly silence. No one likes Gary. Wonder why. Yes, that's a point, Real Cygnus. It's all a matter of permanent public record for his descendants and humanity at large to admire forever. And admire is sarcastic, I'm sure. But that's the thing. These idiots are putting out this stuff and they're not realizing that other people can see it and they'll be able to see it for years to come. Why would you want that? Why would you want that to be your legacy? It makes no sense to me. Anyway, all right. So Gary, after I finish on the stream, I'll be blocking Gary. And we won't be bothered by him again. And my 2 cents, I believe, is one of his socks. If he has any other socks, let me know what they are, and I'll see what I can do about it. Let's go to Meme Roundup. Oops, hang on, wrong button. Let's do that. We'll get there slowly. There we go. Meme Roundup. Here they are comparing a space shuttle launch to golf. First of all, a golf ball isn't powered. Golf are accounting for curvature Earth. It doesn't need to. It never goes far enough for Coriolis to be a problem. And a golf ball is never going to go into orbit. Why do these idiots compare things that aren't comparable? Surely it's obvious to them. They can't be that stupid. No one's that stupid. How could they be human and be that stupid? That's what always puzzles me. Now, here's a new one. I only saw this for the first time yesterday. Of course, Flurf don't camera. And for some reason, and I think it's pretty obvious why, they're basically saying at different focal lengths, the mountains disappear. But first of all, the first one, it's rather blurry. I guess that's because it's a small lens. But the other thing is, they're obviously doing it from a different angle. This telegraph pole is much lower, and therefore these mountains have disappeared behind this grass. But for some reason, they're saying oh, if you zoom in, the mountains will disappear, which is the exact opposite of what flirts normally say. It was a bizarre thing. I saw this on Twitter, or not Twitter, the X platform. Flirts will clutch to anything, won't they? So if the Earth was spinning beneath the pendulum, it would spin beneath balloons. It doesn't. Well, it doesn't spin beneath a pendulum either. The pendulum maintains its point in space. What you see is, because of the rotation of the Earth, and it's not spinning underneath it, it's spinning with it, but the point that it's swinging from is attached to the Earth, but the pendulum maintains its orientation in space. And as the Earth rotates, it'll stay with the same orientation it had at one point all the way through that. So it'll appear to change because we're the ones that are changing. It's so simple that even Gary should be able to understand it. And balloons are in the atmosphere, which is moving with the Earth, so why would it spin underneath? Now, this is something you've seen. I didn't get the right meme, but this is all often presented by flirts as proof that the moon landing didn't happen. But this is from a movie. This is Ryan Gosling. I can't remember the name of the movie. It was a recent one, Man on the Moon or something like that. First Man, maybe it was. And this is a photo that was taken in a break in filming. Yes, it could be fake. That is not proof that it was, especially when it couldn't have been fake back in those days. And what causes the Earth to spin? Does anyone have a clue? Well, flirts certainly don't. But I have a clue. I have a friend who can tell me about it.
Gravity, you fucking retard! Gravity! Have you ever heard of fucking gravity? Gravity! Gravity! Now I need a cigarette.
Always a classic. Ridicules flat earthers, believes this went to the moon. I'm not sure what the point they're making there. If they're comparing a lunar module to some sort of aircraft, that's a ridiculous comparison, yet again. This thing was never designed to fly in an atmosphere. There isn't one on the moon. It was only designed to fly from lunar orbit to the ground and back. So there's no atmosphere, so it didn't need to worry about being aerodynamic or anything like that. I don't know why that's hard to understand. And this is more proof of flirt deceit. They're taking this picture from Apollo 11, and this one they're claiming is from Apollo 12. If you look up this original picture, I believe it was from Apollo 12, both pictures. Flirts are just presenting it as if it's some sort of proof that they just cut and paste. It's just, they're just so deceitful. And yet you can see how someone who doesn't know a lot about it would easily be fooled by it. That's why we do what we do. We need to make sure those people are protected and get the information they need to cut through the bullshit, basically. And I've enjoyed this one. I love it. This is flirts. They connect the invisible dots. In other words, they make up shit to support whatever it is that they want to know, they want to think. This one was just fun. Your stomach thinks all potatoes are mashed. Lasagna is just spaghetti flavored cake. Onion rings are vegetable donuts. It's weird we cook bacon and bake cookies. Lobsters are mermaids for scorpions. Oh, I like that one. And cookie dough is a sushi of desserts. Yes. Cookie. Always love the Cookie Monster. And generally for flirts, we're going to need a shorter bus. Okay, that's it for meme roundup. Have you seen a silly meme lately? Send it to me, and I'll show it to the stream if it's fit for general consumption. Of course, I've seen a few that aren't. Contact details are in the description of this video. Let me know who you'd like me to look at in the near future by leaving a comment below. Tomorrow I'll look at Eddie Allen Carr, also known as Flat Earth Banjo, and Terra Party's silly book called something like 16 Flights That Prove Flat Earth. Do the YouTube things, like the stream, subscribe, click join, leave a comment. I'd love to read your comments. Also, please give me some feedback on the Daily Jarsz. So you're liking what you're seeing? What segments do you suggest? What don't you like? You don't have to worry about Gary Whybother anymore because he won't be here. Who or what should I cover in the future? Let me know in the comments or look in the description for contact details. And I think that just about does us. So there's nothing left to do but cue the corgi.
You're despicable.